Hey there, my name is Meshack Canyon. I'm sitting here with Mark Hoover. He and I, including his wife Mary and Pastor Karen, were at the West Ohio Annual Conference at the beginning of June. And in this video, we're gonna be providing an update about all that took place there. So, Mark, the first question I'd ask you is to just share a little bit about your experience as a lay delegate.
Okay. Probably the biggest difference this year is in past years, I've been a lay delegate for Church of the Savior for more than 10 years, and it's always been up at Lakeside. This year, because of everything going on in budgets, we had it up in Dayton, which had made it a quick drive up and back every day. In terms of what went on at the conference, there were a couple issues that took a lot of the time within the conference. One of them had to do with budgeting issues, things like we're over in terms of insurance claims, and since we're self-funded, that has a direct impact on the budget. And we spent a lot of time talking about camps and retreats. We've got 3 camps, and we can't afford them anymore, so there were long conversations on what we're going to do about that. Those were the main things.
Those are the main things. And can you talk a little bit about how that was shared during the conference? Because we came expecting to vote on whether to sell the camps, right? Mm-hmm. And then just share what happened and how we're going to deal with that situation moving forward.
I'm also a member of the CFA, so I've been, in terms of the camps and retreats, we've been talking about that for the last couple of years. We have 3 camps, and we're bleeding money right now. We are way behind in keeping the facilities up to standard, and in the meantime, people coming to our camps has been going downhill for the last 10 years. So it's just a bad situation. So they had put together a committee that for the past year has been looking into how we were going to deal with this situation. Last year, I think we lost over $1 million in the money that we had to spend on camps versus what we expected have to come in. And the other problem with camps has to do with we can't get enough people to run the camps. As a matter of fact, we had a camp schedule with people coming in, and we had to cancel it because we couldn't get the needed number of people to run the camp and to run it in a safe way. So the committee, which was made up of people that were pro camps, people that knew nothing about camps, people that had a financial background, real estate background, and they studied this for over a year, trying to isolate what the problems were and how to deal with it. And what they came up with is, number one, they said we can't support 3 camps. We just can't do it. Some thought we can't support any camps at all. Physical camps. That's not to say we can't do them, but supporting physical camps to supply our background is the challenge. So the committee finally came up with a recommendation that they brought before the conference to say we recommend that we sell 2 of the camps and keep the camp that has the least cost. Selling the 2 camps that will bring more dollars if we were to sell them, they would then take that money and put them back into the remaining camp. Even doing that, it would still require a capital campaign because the amount of money those 2 camps could raise still wouldn't cover the cost of the needed repairs that need to be made to the existing camp. When that was brought up at conference, there were a lot of people that were just adamant about not getting rid of camps at all. Others thought we could do other things with the money. And so at one point in time, they just decided to pull that recommendation back. And we're going to spend time during the next year going out and talking to people about the problem with the camps and getting feedback from people as to where we think what we should be doing in terms of bringing young people, new people into the Methodist Church.
And that's really the genesis of all the emotion, right? Because there's a lot of nostalgia and history around camps, and many people spent their summers in camps, and so the idea of the camps going away, all that stuff was kind of tangled in there. So I think,
and the part of the problem is that the recommendation came up so late in the year, there really wasn't time to get out in the conference and communicate that to people and give them the details of why we thought we were in such a state that we needed to do this. But there are a lot of people that have grown up with camps. I went to camps when I was young, but these people, they just.
So I think it's good to take a year, even though I would have been fine if they made a decision, but I think it's wise to take a year. It may cost us a little bit of money. I also thought it was wise of Bishop Palmer to use some of the Episcopal address time to let people approach the microphone and share their own vision of how we can strategically evangelize and disciple some of the young people we have, because that's been an ongoing problem in the United Methodist Church.
And that was interesting too, because it morphed into conversations about how we might find other ways to do camps, as to where else we might want to spend that money instead of camps, for the same reason, to bring young people into the church. So, and there were good ideas. There may be other ways to skin this cat, but it's going to take a lot of conversation and input from people so that they can this time come back with a recommendation, because we can't afford to kick this down the can down another year.
That's right. So over the next year, there will be opportunities in each district to get more information about these camps and to have your voice heard. So if you pay attention to the news flash as we become aware of those opportunities that are local, to sit in, to hear more information, to learn, and to share, we'll make sure to provide that to you all as well. Let's transition to talking about ordination and retirement. I'm on the board of ordained ministry, so that's a part of the work that I'm preparing for with that committee, and making sure the ordinands are ready. They've done all the paperwork, and they've completed the process, and they're ready to be ordained. What was that like from your perspective?
The ordination, the retirees, it's always a big part of the annual conference. It's always exciting to see the new people coming in, where they're coming from, where they're going to be appointed. And then there's probably a bigger service is celebrating the work of the retirees as they get ready to move on to another point in their life.
Do you remember Bishop Palmer always has the number of the total aggregate years? I think it was over 2,000 years total for the people who are retiring from ministry.
Yeah, we had a large retirement group this year, and it's interesting when you go to a conference. Sometimes you learn things from just the things that you're voting on, the speeches that people make. This year was one of those years, if you listen closely and watch, you learn some other things that are going on. And in this area of new pastors, retired pastors, if you paid attention, you saw a very interesting trend that has taken place. We had, I don't know the exact numbers, but somewhere around 15 to 20 new elders coming into the church in that status, and we had over 20
retirees. I think close to 50
retirees. So that's kind of an imbalance at yourself. The other part of the conference that they always save to last is to announce fix the appointments. So now you get to hear who's moving where. And when they first started, usually they'll tell you that it's this person, they're moving to this church. And then when they're done with the district, or if they're done with the church, if there are any positions that haven't been filled yet, they'll say, and one to be supplied. And usually, a typical conference that I've been to the last 10 years, it might be maybe 8, maybe 12 total of those per district. This year, we had 80 of those to be supplied positions listed. And as I started hearing the numbers, I said, wow, these are larger than I've ever heard. And when they were done fixing the appointments, Bishop Palmer, his first words out of his mouth was, these are the largest numbers I've ever seen. So this is indicating that not only is the imbalance between retirements and people coming in as new pastors, there's some other issues going on to where we just don't have enough people to, even with the churches that left, we still don't have anywhere near enough.
Yeah, and that's been a growing issue over the last few years, where the number of retirees is higher than the number of those who are entering ordained ministry or entering the process to get ordained. And the district superintendents are hard at work, and we'll manage that. At the end of the day, it's God's church, and God will lead us and guide us to have churches with called and qualified pastors in some way. But it was alarming to hear the number of churches that at that point didn't have a pastor appointed to serve them. So let's talk about some of the takeaways that directly impact Church of the Savior from a conference level. And there's a lot of talk about budget in relation to the camps, but also the budget in relation to disaffiliation and apportionments and things like that. Can you share a little bit about what was shared with us at the annual conference?
Sure. Being a part of the Finance Administration Committee, we knew with all the changes coming up that we weren't going to be able to have a budget ready by the time of this conference. There were just too many things that we didn't know, too many things that hadn't been decided. The interest rates were going up through the roof. So they decided to put a proposal to the conference to delay delivery of the budget. Normally this is done, and it's mandated in the Book of Reports that the budget has to be presented to the annual conference on the first day of the conference. So the first day of the conference, when it was our turn to present the budget, we set up a proposal to say we want to put off doing the budget until September, October timeframe, which will give us time to get feedback back from the conferences in terms of some decisions that have been made. They've been doing some research on how we're going to, what things, areas we might be looking at where we can help reduce the cost. But we weren't sure whether that was going to be approved or not. And I bet you money that Bill Bronson, who's the treasurer, probably had a draft budget that had it been turned down, he would have pulled out, because we were told to be ready to have a meeting sometime during the early part of the conference. So, but that was approved almost unanimously, which means we will have another conference. I think it's in
October, the last Saturday in October. There will be another special annual conference to not only deal with disaffiliations, but to, I believe, to get some new delegates for the general conference that'll be happening next year. And I'm sure there will be some other business that we handle during that session.
So that's where the budget will be presented, discussed, voted on, adjusted. And so that's good to have, because it gives us time to have a reasonable budget that we have a chance of making.
Talk about what he said concerning our budget health, disaffiliations, apportionments, and mission alignment.
Our conference treasurer, as I said, is Bill Bronson. He's been chair of the CFA committee that puts together all the budget for many years, and he's done an outstanding job of taking us where we were losing money, restructuring our investments to now things like the pension is no longer covered out of the operations budget. They now can pay for the entire budget of the pensions through their investments and income from their investments. So Bill Bronson's comment at the conference and in his report in the Book of Reports basically said that the West Ohio Conference is in a very good state in terms of their finances, a very good state that he believes can take us well into the future, even with the disaffiliations that are going on. He did that with the one caveat is that we can't continue spending the amounts that we were spending in the past. We're going to have to look at what we do, where we spend, who we support, and come up with some targets as what are the things that are important to West Ohio Conference. Name about 4 or 5 things, and those then have to be our goals as to where areas that we want to move forward in. Then we have to look at the budgets individually to say, our current budget, look at it line by line. Does it fit one of these goals, one of these target areas? If it does, we can continue to support it. If it doesn't, we're going to have to stop spending in that area. And that was his only caveat. As long as we as a conference do that, we will be in very good shape. And the other important thing is we will not, he made a pledge that we will not have to increase apportionments to the churches that are left after the disaffiliations have occurred, that we will not raise that to cover that cost.
And that was like an indirect message to churches to say, we all need to be doing the same thing. Our budget should reflect our mission and align with our mission. So for churches, and it's easy to have your budget just loosely trail off into different areas. So what he's calling for the conference to do is get really strategic about supporting the ministries that are directly related to our mission. And that was kind of the indirect message to the lay delegates and pastors, that our own church budgets should also have the same strategy, where we're always looking at it to make sure that the things that we're supporting are directly related to who God has called us to be in the community. Yeah,
that's right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the last thing that we discovered, we just shared that the General Conference, at the annual conference in October, we would be electing some replacement delegates for the General Conference. And the reason we're doing that at the October annual conference is because General Conference is now going to be in the spring of 2024. So I believe end of April, beginning of May.
And that's a big change for us because going into conference, I had been told it wasn't going to be till after our annual conference.
Yeah, they initially gave a range. They didn't have a specific date, but the assumption was that it would be in the fall. But then they announced early, before annual conference, they chose the date, but it wasn't really publicized widely. But that's where many people discovered that it would be in the spring. So that kind of changed the timeline, because before the next annual conference, there would have been a general conference, and a lot of potentially big decisions would have been made. So we'll see how that plays out.
That'll give us something to do next year.
Yeah, it will. It will. And so now, just talking about, everybody knows that in our denomination, there's a potential split taking place, and there's a lot of conversation about human sexuality and a whole bunch of other important issues, disaffiliations and things like that. And we've addressed that in other videos about how we at Church of the Savior don't intend on disaffiliating. We intend on continuing to be who God has called us to be as we endeavor to make disciples of Jesus Christ, to transform the church community and the world. And I love Bishop Palmer because he's in his messages, he always helps us get refocused on that. So can you share a little bit about your reflection from his Episcopal address, which is the address that he uses annually to just talk to pastors, talk to lay delegates, in the hopes that from that message we'll come back to our own communities and get busy doing it.
Exactly. And if you've ever heard Bishop Palmer talk, he is a very passionate person, and he is an outstanding speaker. And in this case, I think his goal was to try to refocus us. There's so many distractions out there with camps, with disaffiliations. He wants us to start focusing on where are we, not the past, where are we going in the future and what we should be doing. So in that, he began his address saying that our calling is to serve the present age, even if there's a storm.
Even if there's a storm that's in the midst of passing over. So I want to say a couple things to you, and then I'm gonna quit. I don't want to quit, but I'm going to quit because we have other important conferencing work to do. One of our storms is disaffiliation. That's not a blame thing. It's just the way it is. It's in the book. We've given a lot of attention to it. Let me be clear. It is not our mission. We gave attention to it. We'll finish up what there is to be finished up. But it is not Jesus' mission. It's not the mission of the United Methodist Church. It's not Greg Palmer's mission. And it's not your mission. We got one mission. Make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Not my mission. So I just want clarity. I understand my job description and I understand my mission. And I just want you to understand your mission. And until all of our churches wake up and understand what I said to you 7 Episcopal addresses ago. Leslie Newbegin reminded us that the only institution that doesn't exist in one sense for the people that are there is the church. We exist for the people that have yet to come.
Yeah, so I think from that message, you all have heard what we've been about the last few months, and even before I arrived here, previous pastors have really focused on discipleship, and we want to be a church that helps this community, those who are part of the church, grow as disciples. We want to make new disciples, and we want to make an impact in the community to such a degree that people are not only thankful that we're here, but they give thanks to the name of God. And Bishop Palmer's address really called us back to that. And by the grace of God, here at Church of the Savior, we can lean into that, and we can share a testimony in the future about how much God has been present at the church and the impact of God's presence amongst us as we focused on discipleship and living by faith and being a blessing to those that God has called us to serve. As we wrap this up, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you very much for watching. Mark, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. We're going to make sure that since this is a really big year and a lot of big things will be happening within the next 12 months, we're going to make sure to keep you all updated as much as possible on the important events, on any opportunities to learn more or to contribute your voice to the conversations that are taking place, because as General Conference comes, we definitely want to be prepared, to be as prepared as possible and not taken by surprise by any of the developments. So thank you again for watching. It's a privilege to serve you both as pastor and lay delegate at the annual conference. And if you have any questions about this, please reach out to me or Mark or Mary or Pastor Karen, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Until next time, guys, peace.